On January 15, 1919, Boston was hit by the Great Molasses Flood, a wave of molasses estimated at up to 25 feet high, moving at roughly 35 miles an hour. It killed 21 people, injured around 150, and sent 2.3 million gallons of industrial molasses through Boston's North End. What sounds like an absurd piece of history was, in fact, a devastating industrial disaster, and one that might have been prevented. The story begins in 1915, when the Purity Distilling Company, a subsidiary of United States Industrial Alcohol, built a gigantic steel storage tank on Commercial Street. The tank was 50 feet tall and 90 feet across, holding 2.3 million gallons of molasses. Much of it was destined for distilleries, where it would be fermented into industrial alcohol, used in munitions production during the First World War. Demand was high, and commercial pressure was intense. The tank was built quickly, with a dangerous compromise. A new tank should normally be tested by gradually filling it with water, allowing engineers to find leaks and structural weaknesses before it is trusted with its intended contents. That process was skipped, or carried out only in a token fashion. It reportedly received only a few inches of water before being declared ready. And almost immediately, there were warning signs. The tank leaked. Residents later remembered children collecting dripping molasses in tin cans. When the tank was filled, it could reportedly be heard groaning. Instead of investigating, the company reportedly painted the tank brown, the same color as the molasses inside it, making the leaks less visible. Then came January 15, 1919. Boston had experienced a hard cold snap, but the day was unusually warm for January. Around 12:30 in the afternoon, workers, residents and firefighters at the nearby Engine 31 firehouse heard a strange sound. It began like machine gun fire as the tank's rivets sheared apart. Then came a deep, rumbling roar. The steel walls gave way. Suddenly, 2.3 million gallons of molasses were no longer contained. The tank ruptured catastrophically, releasing a wave estimated in some accounts at 15 to 25 feet high. It surged through the streets at roughly 35 miles an hour. Modern engineering analysis attributes the flood's speed and force to enormous hydrostatic pressure, combined with the unusual behavior of molasses as a non-Newtonian fluid. Under violent motion, it could behave very differently from the syrup we imagine pouring from a jar, before becoming increasingly difficult to escape as it slowed and thickened. The wave tore the steel tank apart, flattened structures, lifted a freight car from its tracks, and struck a support column of the elevated railway, bringing it dangerously close to collapse. It crushed the Engine 31 firehouse against the elevated structure, trapping firefighters inside. Horses pulling wagons were caught and suffocated where they stood, while people were thrown against buildings, buried beneath wreckage, or engulfed. 21 people died. Some were killed almost instantly by the force of the wave. Others drowned or suffocated as the molasses thickened around them, trapping victims in a substance that became harder and harder to move through. Around 150 more people were injured. Molasses covered the streets several feet deep. As temperatures dropped again, the syrup began to stiffen. Rescue workers and medical examiners struggled through the wreckage, and it took days to recover and identify all of the victims. Then came the cleanup. Hundreds of city workers, sailors from the nearby Navy Yard, and volunteers used salt water and sand to break down and wash away the syrup. People and vehicles carried it throughout the city, onto streetcar seats, into homes, and along train platforms. The smell of molasses reportedly lingered in the North End for decades, especially in summer. Boston Harbor itself turned brown, and some accounts described a faint sweetness for months. But amid the wreckage, another question took shape. Who was responsible? United States Industrial Alcohol initially tried to shift blame away from the tank. The company suggested that anarchists might have bombed it, and another explanation blamed fermentation gases inside the tank. But the survivors and families of the victims did not accept those explanations. More than 3,000 people eventually joined a consolidated civil lawsuit. The legal battle lasted nearly 6 years and involved more than 1,000 witnesses. In 1925, court-appointed auditor Colonel Hugh Ogden found United States Industrial Alcohol responsible. The cause was structural failure, not sabotage. The company was ordered to pay approximately $300,000 in damages, substantial for the time, but only a fraction of the harm caused. The case had consequences far beyond compensation. The disaster helped push Massachusetts and other states toward tighter engineering oversight, including greater reliance on licensed engineers to review major structural plans. Decades later, modern engineering analysis returned to the tank itself. A 2014 study by structural engineer Ronald Mayville used modern stress calculations and metallurgical analysis to reassess the failure. It identified several contributing weaknesses: steel plates too thin for the loads, understrength rivets, and steel vulnerable to brittle failure in cold conditions. The sudden warm-up may also have reactivated fermentation and increased internal pressure. These modern calculations are reconstructions, not measurements taken during the disaster, and historical sources differ on some physical details. But the central story is consistent. The tank was vulnerable, warning signs existed, and the structure failed. It is tempting to remember the Great Molasses Flood as one of history's strangest disasters, a story whose premise can sound almost comic. But behind that bizarre image is a familiar story. A structure built quickly under commercial pressure, visible warnings that were not properly investigated, and decisions that placed speed ahead of safety. The tank had leaked. It had groaned. And instead of asking why, someone painted over the evidence. 21 people paid the price. The Great Molasses Flood became more than a tragic curiosity. It became an early lesson in engineering responsibility, a reminder that when structures are built to contain enormous forces, safety cannot depend on appearances or assurances. It requires testing. It requires independent scrutiny. And it requires someone willing to take a warning seriously before it becomes a catastrophe. The Great Molasses Flood left Boston with damaged buildings, ruined streets, and a smell that seemed impossible to forget. But it also left behind a principle. Engineering is not simply about making something stand. It is about making sure it can stand safely. Because when it fails, the consequences are rarely limited to the people who designed it. And sometimes the warning is there for years. You just have to listen before the tank breaks.